All right, welcome everyone to tonight's meeting of the Clyde Sukeforth chapter of Sabre. I am Bruce McClure, the chapter chair, and we always hold our meetings in conjunction with the Gardner Waterman chapter of Sabre in Vermont. Dr. Clayton Truder, chair. Oh my God, I'm tired. Oh, I flew out Friday from Boston at dark 30, actually before dark 30, to get to Chicago for our board meeting. We had a lot of great work done for all of you this past weekend, which you're going to see a lot of coming up in the weeks and months ahead. A lot of good work for the convention is taking place behind the scenes as well. If you are not registered for our convention in Cleveland, I suggest you go to sabre.org now and get registered and get yourself to Cleveland, because it is going to be a really, really good convention. Joe Ross, where are you, my guy?
I'm here.
Joe, what is your favorite entry in today in baseball history?
Oh, thank you, Bruce, and hello, everybody. I'm going to give you two, actually. I'm sorry for that, but I have to. Boston has always been noted to be one of the best cities in terms of its fan base. And that happened to be true in 2005 when Alex Rodriguez of New York was cheered in Boston. Turns out the Yankee had risked his life to save an 8-year-old boy who was running into the street in front of a truck. But it shows you the Boston fans recognize good things. The other thing I think that was fascinating, actually funny, in 2018, Matt Chapman of Oakland had a hole-in-one, since we just finished the Masters. Of course, it wasn't in golf. His sixth inning home run ended up into a fan's full cup of beer. I don't think they replaced the beer for him, but the Athletics lost the game anyway. And that's a little bit about what happened today in baseball history. And hopefully it brings a smile to everybody's face,
I love
as
it.
it did to Bruce.
That's awesome. Hey, Joe, tell them how to get it.
To subscribe to Today in Baseball History, which will get you this story and all the others like it, and some even about strictly baseball. Send me an email to jandeross@gmail.com, and I'll walk you through the system.
There you go. There you go. If you're not on that list, email Joe. I get it every day. It's fantastic. It really is. Thank you, Joe. I appreciate you. Where's Jeff Cohen?
Here I am. Here I am.
Jeff, my guy, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
We were talking about you this weekend because we
Uh-oh.
were talking about podcasters and content creators, and of course, I bring you up immediately because,
Thank you.
well, there are content creators and podcasters,
Mhm.
and then there's baseball and barbecue. What's going on with your podcast this week?
Thank you. Yes. This week we have Jack Fritz. He is a broadcaster for WIP Radio and a huge Phillies fan. He wrote a book about how the Philadelphia Phillies built baseball's best fan base. Now I question that a little, but he's a good guy, though. He's a good guy. So we get into all Philadelphia, all Philadelphia Phillies history. That's last week. Coming up this week on Baseball and BBQ is a man named Kurt Smith. Now you might not have heard of him, but he has a great website called Ballpark E-Guides. So it gives you a
Yeah.
lot of information going to each ballpark, where to park, what to eat, money-saving tips. So he's got all that, and he's very interesting. So again, he's also from Philadelphia, but he's an Orioles fan. Anyway, that's
Oh,
what
I
we
like
have.
him already.
Anyway, that's coming up on Baseball and BBQ, and that's on the Halls of Fame podcast. It's a New York State Halls of Fame podcast. We have a basketball broadcaster named Mark Kestacher. He's the lead basketball broadcaster for ESPN Radio.
Nice. I mean, if you're not getting that podcast in your podcatcher each week, program your podcatcher to download that on a weekly basis, and you're going to find that you are going to have some really good content to listen to while you're driving around, doing something at home, barbecuing in the backyard, getting some recipes from Jeff and Len. I mean, really, it's great stuff, and I mean, it's baseball and food. What more could you ask for?
Yeah.
I mean, look at me. I haven't missed a meal in years.
Thanks,
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate you. Megan, where are you, my friend?
Right here.
Okay, so I have to tell you, I bragged about you this weekend
Okay.
repeatedly because of the work you're doing on the newsletter, where I owe you a
Oh,
letter.
thank you.
Yeah, sorry. Uh,
No problem.
it is. So is it just about ready, other than like my stuff and Gus's stuff? I'm sure,
Uh, n-
sort
it's
of.
close. It's very close. It's very
Okay,
close. And in fact, actually, Gus beat you to it. Gus
of course he
has,
did. Of course he
yes.
did.
Not only has he written his column for this issue, but he'd already written a column and then found a better idea. So now he's actually two columns ahead.
See, see, Gus has always been an overachiever. And as you can see, he's already got his summer work done. So I mean, he's done till like September, October, which is
Correct.
dismaying.
This looks like
I did confirm with some of my colleagues this weekend as we were chatting that Gus is the first cat to have a column in a newsletter. That is now confirmed. Some of
yes.
my
Well,
colleagues were like, "You guys are nuts up there," but you're having fun, and that's all that matters.
that's
Uh,
right. That's right. He actually wrote about a really unique game that took place up here in northern New England last week.
oh, I can't wait to read it. Nice
Yes.
job. Gus is on our gallery view right now. He does give a good profile. He's doing a great job. Has he researched the black cat that jinxed the Cubs in '69?
He has actually, yes. Yes.
Okay, so that was
He
pure coincidence. That was it. Okay.
he has an entire folder of, believe it or not, cat-based or cat-themed baseball stories, and there are far, far more than you can possibly imagine. Like, I think I counted like 3.5 years worth of potential cat baseball stories.
So does this make us crazy cat people?
Maybe it does. I don't even own a
Uh,
cat, but I have two
uh,
dogs though.
okay. I- So if you have an article, if you have something you would like to contribute to our newsletter, Megan is your gal. She is accepting submissions all the time for publication whenever. Now
Yes,
the
kind of
spring one's
rolling.
full, right?
The spring is full, and I'm still looking for some for summer, and I would take some for fall even. Yeah, for sure.
So there you go. So if you have something that you would like to contribute to our newsletter, send it to Megan. Do you want to put your email in the chat, or can we give it out?
Sure, I either way, I can put
M
you in the chat.
Fuller Hannah. Did I get it right?
Yes, you did.
Look at me go. Ooh. M Fuller Hannah at Comcast.net. She'll drop that in the chat. I have to say that I am extremely proud of the work that Megan is doing for us, and I am so happy that she is. And I spent the entire weekend bragging about what she has done for us.
Oh, thank
And
you.
my colleagues are probably finished listening to me on any level. So
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate
I
that.
know I appreciate you. Thank you very much, Megan. You're terrific. Uh, so yeah, if you have something for her, send it along today. All right. Let's get on with our feature presentation. Total bases generated is a new family of baseball statistics based on the premise that offense is baseball in the generation of bases by the batter for himself, for base runners, and as a base runner. Therefore, counting the number of bases by a player generates can prove a very accurate measure of the player's offensive productivity. Tonight's presentation is a discussion of that new statistic. Sabre member Mike Walsh is currently the vice president of communications for the Connie Mack Dick Allen chapter in Philadelphia. He has given several presentations on this subject and about the 1966 Phillies. Before his retirement, Mike made a living writing software manuals for large and small corporations, and he has also written fiction, humor, plays, journalism, and music, and he is here tonight to discuss total bases generated. Mike Walsh, unmute yourself. Welcome to Northern New England, my friend. How are you? We're trying to get him unmuted.
Mike looks like he's frozen, at least on my screen.
Uh-oh. Did he freeze up? All of that, and he's gone. Dum, dum, dum. All right, I get to tap dance now, don't I? Uh-oh. Yay, computers. These are fun. These are fun. Hang on. Joe Ross. In Bruce's case, baseball doesn't interfere. Dixie Tarango in the chat. Crazy baseball people narrows it down, or does it? Joe Ross, crazy cat people. What does cats have to do with it? Well, a lot, Joe, because if crazy and cats, they go together. I mean, just hang out at my house and watch Gus once in a while. You'll understand. Uh,
That's what I mean. In your case, does cat have anything to do with it?
that's a good point. That's a very good point. Is Mike back yet? Let's see. Oh dear. I did not realize that Mike was frozen up and he may have had to exit the building. Ladies and gentlemen, Elvis has exited the building. Um,
You can
we were
always
having
just play
trouble. What
Jeff's
was that, Joe?
podcast. You can always just play Jeff's latest podcast.
Right?
Hey,
Yeah,
there you
I
go.
was thinking about pivoting to that.
You're welcome, Jeff.
Thank you. Thank you.
Guys, Gus got a
Brian
present from
McClanahan in the
Seattle
chat.
or
I hear
Chicago.
Gus was catatonic during Easter. Steve Winters in the chat. How many cat-based baseball team nicknames are there? That would probably be a good research project for me because that would be a very entry-level research project. I just don't research or write because one, I don't have the time, and two, I don't have the talent.
Bruce, Bruce, do you want me to speak a few minutes on the symposium coming up?
You know what? That would be great. Jeff has been accepted, and you and Len have both been accepted, right?
Yes.
To present at the Cooperstown Symposium in May, and you are presenting on podcast, correct?
Yes, I am.
Go.
So the Cooperstown Symposium was established in 1989. It's called, actually, the actual name is the Cooperstown Symposium on Baseball and American Culture. It's sponsored by the National Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum, along with the State University of New York at Oneonta. This year is going to be the 37th. It's taking place from May 27th through the 29th. And they have a keynote speaker is Larry Lucchino, and also Melissa Lutke, who was, I think, the first female journalist to get into the locker room.
Friend of our chapter, Melissa Lutke.
Oh, excellent, excellent. Yes. So they have it's 3 sessions. It's over 3 days. I know on Thursday night they have a banquet in the Hall of Fame plaque gallery, but they have some really interesting speakers, and I'm not going to name them all because I'll just take too much time. But a few of the the names that you've probably heard of is Dan Levitt. He's an independent writer and
He is the
historian.
president of the board of directors of Sabre.
He doesn't know much. What does he know?
Yeah, he doesn't know a thing. I mean, really. Hey, Levitt, if you're watching, you're a bum.
So a couple of sessions that they're broken up into different categories. So they have the bullpen theater. It's this Boston baseball fandom, which is what part of Dan Levitt's part of. Also, is Kansas City and Buck O'Neill is going to be a separate like category, along with the broadcasters is another one, where they have a couple of speakers speaking on the on broadcasters. Let's see what else do they have. The fandom and memory is another session that they're going to be talking about. They have 3 or 4 speakers there. I'm going to be doing the pop culture and media. That's going to be moderated by David Krell, another Sabre member. And yes, the name of my podcast is Yet Fun, Yes, but Easy No, building an independent baseball podcast 1 episode at a time. And there's other speakers who's going to be there. There's what's his name? His name. I'm getting old. These names
Aren't we all?
these names are escaping me. Brian Opinto's going to be speaking there. I think he's also a Sabre member. I know Donna Muscarella is going to be attending. Leslie Hemphy. I'm not sure if anybody's heard of her. I think she's a big
Yeah,
big person
she's
in
another
Sabre.
one that's like, who are you? I mean, come on.
Right.
Leslie Heapy? She's
Yes.
At one time she was the vice president of the board of directors. She is extraordinary.
Yes. So there's going to be a lot of speakers, a lot of different topics. There's biographies, Bat Boys and Youth, thoughts of patriotism, a couple of mascots, a session on the Negro Leagues and baseball beyond borders, some of the rule changes, women in baseball, and baseball impact on communities. So this is going to be a really interesting symposium, and like I said, it is on May 27th through the 29th. So if anybody's going to Cooperstown or wants to attend all these sessions, just contact the Hall of Fame, and we'd love to see you there.
If I recall, correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, one of the point people or the point person on the symposium is friend of our chapter and the patron saint of baseball research, Cassidy Lent.
Yes, she's the one who's putting this whole thing together.
Yep. She is one of the best people in all of our organization. She does everything with $1 million smile and has tirelessly worked for the Hall of Fame for years. When we renamed our chapter after Clyde, she sent me an email and said, I have a little present for you. I'll be sending it along in a day or two. She says, just hang in with me. And I think it was that afternoon, I got 2 emails from her with giant PDFs of everything the Hall of Fame has on Clyde Sukeforth. And she put it together, boom, like that. If you're a researcher, you know who Cassidy Lent is. You know that she's extraordinary and is encyclopedic of her knowledge of the Hall of Fame baseball and Cooperstown in general.
Bruce, she's also mentioned like every baseball book that I read.
Right. Right. I mean, at this point, she's in at the very least hundreds of books, if not thousands.
That's because all these conferences that go through Cooperstown's, she saved everyone's ass at least twice.
Ding, ding, ding. You win. You bet. Without a doubt. And I don't think this is a secret when I say I think the absolute world of Cassidy Lent, and can't thank her enough for what she does for baseball and Sabre in general. We went to Cooperstown, my wife and I, and we took her 2 kids several years ago, and Cassidy took an insane amount of time to sit with one of Molly's kids and give her things about Roberto Clemente for a thing that she was doing in school. It was just amazing what she did. And I can't thank her. To this day, I can't thank her enough. I think Mike's equipment has failed him. We're going to have to get him back in because I really want to hear his presentation. So we may have a special Wednesday with him at some point because I don't see him coming back in
A phone number for him?
at all. And we were having trouble. The reason we didn't let anybody in until very late was we were having trouble with the sound. And I'm wondering as if that had something to do with it. I don't know, but it's a computer. It's not supposed to make sense. So we could just have a gab fest for a while. I'm wondering if anybody here is doing anything cool, fun, interesting, or would like to share any research that's going on with any of you. Molly's got her hand up. I don't know if that's Molly or Gus wants to talk, but I'll just go to the vice president of the Clyde Sukeforth chapter, the vice chair. Go, Moll.
Hi. So it's me. And I am working with Carrie Keene on her project. And she is trying to figure out the best of the best for baseball. And I'm just going to read the email to you. She had sent this to me a while back. In the midst of the move, I accidentally lost the email and I just reached out to her this weekend. Here are the few features that should help ensure just the greatest of the greats are included in this list. Some very important distinctions are the voters will be asked to vote for a minimum of 125 players and a maximum of 150 players. In order for the player to make the final list, he will be required to receive 90% of the vote. It's also important to emphasize that this is open to players only. Any other role they've held within the game are not to be considered. So, for example, Clyde would not be considered for his managerial skills or his scouting skills. even though we all agree he should be in the Hall of Fame because of the integration. He would only be counted for his baseball on the field skills, which I still take issue with.
See, this is where I have a little bit of a problem with this project because of the way it's set up. And I mean, no disrespect to the head of the project, but by their definition, Effa Manley doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame, and that's not true.
So let me get back to the email. It's also important to emphasize that this is open to players only, and any other role held within the game is not to be considered. The so-called character clause the Hall of Fame voters are asked to consider will not exist. Only what the player did on the field of play is to be considered. So players such as Shoeless Joe Jackson and Pete Rose might warrant consideration for what they did on the field. Also, with regards to PED use, if the voter believes the player was clearly on a Hall of Fame type track before his suspected use, it would be acceptable to support them. But that's the voter's choice. I am hopeful that the 19th century players, the Negro League players, and the early 20th century dead ball era players are fairly represented along with more modern players. However, there is no quota for any era or position. It is also important to add that there is not a 5-year waiting period that the Hall of Fame observes, but closer to a 3-year waiting period. A player will be eligible who plays up through 2023, but not after that. This means players such as Albert Pujols, Miguel Cabrera, Joey Votto, Buster Posey can receive votes. Voters will hopefully have a fairly broad-based knowledge of baseball history. Ballots submitted via name list included in an email will not be due until June 1st. So if anyone's interested in contributing to this, the person doing it is Carrie Keene. Reach out to me and I can put you in touch with her, or just drop her email into the chat, whatever you guys want.
In theory, it's a good idea. My problem with it is that it excludes so many people who belong in the Hall of Fame. First one, up close, personal, right on top, Effa Manley. You cannot exclude Effa Manley from the Hall of Fame. And frankly, you cannot exclude Marvin Miller from the Hall of Fame. And you can't tell me that you can't vote for Janet Marie Smith for everything. She's made the Major League Baseball, almost trillions of dollars. I can't imagine any Hall of Fame without some of those people. It's a great project. I think it's gonna come out with some great results.
Hey, Bruce.
Yeah.
Hey, it's Mike O'Hare. If I could just, if you don't mind, I got a couple things on this project.
Lay it on me.
So, I've been working on this thing for probably the last 6 weeks.
Okay.
And it's been awesome. I mean, I get the initiative and trying to narrow it down. What I don't know is if the individual that's in charge of it is really saying those people that contributed off the field don't belong in the Hall of Fame. I think, or at least my belief is, maybe he's just isolating the initiative to players only. And I don't know that to be a fact, but that's kind of my understanding. So I totally agree with you. There's so many other contributors to the game off the field that belong in the Hall of Fame. But what I don't know is if the individual is really saying they don't belong in the Hall of Fame, or is just really saying, hey, let's just look at the players and really do kind of a due diligence. And because his consensus is that there's players in there that don't belong. And so it's gotten too easy, or if that's a better word, or just it's not as stringent as maybe it should be or it used to be. And so what I've done is I've downloaded from Baseball Reference advanced stats for every player, up 200 players at every position. And I'm just going through and looking at the statistics and looking at a lot of other things like postseason, awards, Gold Gloves, Silver Sluggers, etc., All-Star Game contributions, all that stuff.
Mike, I'm going to jump in here for a second.
Sure.
I apologize because
No,
he's back. I apologize, Mike. Thank you.
no, that's fine. No
Callum,
problem.
I will get to you guys in a bit.
Bruce, I'm back.
Mike Walsh made it.
Oh my God.
Holy cow.
I lost internet access for like 25 minutes or something. It just, I had to restart routers, the whole thing.
Introduction, the whole bit, and
Oh
then
my God.
nothing.
Oh,
Holy moly. He's alive, folks. I'm going to get out of the way. We're going to give it to Mike. Go get him, man.
oh, okay. Great. Great. Thank you. I'm going to share.
You're able to do that now.
I'm very sorry. I apologize to everybody for this delay.
We'll give him a minute to get set up. These things happen. I was just about to email him to say, Mike, you alive?
Oh my goodness. Okay, can you see my presentation screen?
Yes.
Okay. Again, very sorry, everybody. I appreciate you all being here. I appreciate your patience. tBG is a project that a guy named myself and a neighbor of mine named Tom Lewis started a few years ago based on an idea for a stat. Tom's the programmer, and I pretty much do everything else. It's based on, we have data, publicly available data, free data from two sources. Retrosheet.org has play-by-play data, which we use back to 1910, and the Layman database, which is now maintained by Sabre and has yearly data, player stats. So we use both of the data from both of those sources in this project. And if you ever want to start your own baseball stat project, these sources will be available to you. The tBG is based on the premise that offense in baseball equals bases, or the generation of bases, that no matter how they are generated, they are part of the team's offense. And to measure a player's offensive productivity, all we need to do is to count the bases that the player generates. Now, so what we do is we count all bases generated on every play, and we credit those bases to the responsible player regardless of how the bases are generated. They're normally generated by the batter, but in some cases by the base runners. Bases are generated for the batter for the bases he hits for himself, and the bases he moves for base runners. So if he advances base runners, those bases are counted toward tBG for that batter. I mean, we all know when a batter comes up to the plate in baseball, he's trying to get a hit to move himself around the bases, but to also move the runners, the existing base runners around those bases. And there are very few stats that count those particular bases, the bases that he moves for the base runners. And in terms of bases can also be attributed to base runners when they gain or lose bases on base running plays. So every single base is gained or lost is accounted for in tBG. We have a very strict accounting, and that's why we use the word total. So let's talk about a couple of older stats first of all. I mean, the most obvious one being batting average. It's the calculation of number of hits divided by number of at-bats. We all know that. At-bats, but what counts as at-bats? That's the tricky thing. Hits, outs, fielder's choice, reaching base on an error. Those are what are counted as at-bats. Walks, sacrifices, hit by pitch, and catcher's interference are not counted. Okay. And batting average goes way back to the 19th century. But in tBG, we use plate appearances. Plate appearances are every time the player comes up to bat. So it's all those things counted by at-bats, as well as the things at-bats does not count. So we count every single play. And I think it's interesting to note that batting average is based on at-bats, But to qualify for the batting title, you have to have 3.1 plate appearances per game. So plate appearances determines whether the batting average qualifies. Okay, then we can look at slugging percentage. Slugging percentage was created to improve on batting average, because batting average counts every hit as a 1. Slugging percentage simply counts every hit by the number of bases. So therefore, a player who hits for power is going to have a much higher slugging percentage than his batting average. So the number of bases from hits is also called total bases. You will see that on some sites. There's a total bases number. That's the number, that's essentially the nominator in that calculation. And at-bats is the denominator, just like batting average. So slugging percentage started getting used by MLB in the early 20s. And by the way, there's another stat called WOBA, you guys may have heard of, which improves on the idea even a little further. And what WOBA does is it calculates coefficients for each type of hit are calculated each year based on how often the event generates a run. And so instead of counting bases with WOBA, you get this coefficient is added each time there's a type of hit or even a walk or a hit by pitch. You see I have ROBA there. That's what Baseball Reference calls it. We live in an age where there's a lot of different stats are calculated differently by different websites. And then they give them different names just to confuse things a little bit more. So and WRC plus, by the way, is the normalized version of WOBA. But WOBA is pretty cool, pretty neat, and another advancement in stat keeping, baseball stats. So, who created? Then we have on-base percentage in the 40s, created by this guy, the guy with the big eyebrows, Branch Rickey, with his statistician Alan Roth. Branch Rickey was a GM. I'm sure many of you know that. And he probably had as much impact on baseball in the 20th century as anyone. But he created on-base percentage because as a GM, he knew, well, people are getting on base in ways other than hits. And so we need to look at on-base percentage to help us get better players because they're on base, they're more likely to score, it's going to help the team. So on-base percentage was a brilliant idea. Unfortunately, baseball did not adopt it until, like the early 80s. Major League Baseball kind of ignored it until the early 80s. And then when I say adopt, I mean Major League Baseball started keeping record of on-base percentage and including it in its own stats. So there's the calculation for on-base percentage, hits plus base on balls plus hit by pitch, and at-bats plus base on balls, hit by pitch, and sacrifice flies. Okay, so it doesn't count on getting on base from fielding errors, fielder's choice, uncaught third strikes, fielder's obstruction, catcher's interference. All those things do count towards tBG, by the way. So, if you read the book Moneyball, which is a great book, and most of you probably have, you know that on-base percentage is kind of the star of that book. It's and you will see stats frequently like this at this lower line here. We see 250/300/400. This is just an example. What this means, the first number is batting average, the second number is on-base percentage, and the third number is slugging percentage. So on-base percentage is always going to be higher than batting average unless the person never walks or gets hit by a pitch. And slugging percentage is always going to be higher than batting average unless the person only hits singles. So if you have a guy who only hits singles and never walks or gets hit by a pitch, those three numbers will be exactly the same. But of course, there's no player quite like that, at least that I know of. I should probably never say never. Somebody will come up with one. But anyway. And then in 84, we had these guys, John Thorne and Pete Palmer. They published a book called The Hidden Game of Baseball, which is a landmark book in analytics. And they proposed adding on-base percentage to slugging percentage and creating this thing called OPS. So, and as we all know, in the last 25 years, OPS has really been adopted. Major League Baseball includes it, and we see it all over the place. So there's a fourth number for offense. Now, by the way, this photo, we have Ted Williams here on the left. This was in 1943. He's the all-time on-base percentage leader. And then we have the Babe over here, and he's the all-time slugging percentage leader. And so you have the two of them together. This is a physical manifestation of OPS. Okay, let's get back to tBG. And what we had to develop when scoring plays, 16 million of them, by the way, in our database back to 1910, is we had to have rules on exactly how we're scoring the plays. So I'm going to go through some of these rules with you and show you a few examples. And then we're going to get to the reports, which is really the cool stuff. So the main thing for tBG for scoring plays is the bases generated for the as a result of a batter's plate appearance are credited to the batter, just like slugging percentage, right? So we incorporate all the bases that slugging percentage counts, we incorporate those. Plus, advances by base runners as a result of the batter's plate appearance are also credited to the batter. I mentioned that before. That covers probably 85% of our scoring in tBG. And by the way, outs are scored as a 0 for the batter, just like all these other stats. Okay, so here's an example. And I use this clip art on a few slides. So here's the batter. He's got a bat in his hand. And on this play, there's a runner on first. Okay, the batter hits a single. Okay, he ends up on first, of course. The runner advances to third. So the way we would score this is we're adding the base from the batter's hit, which is a 1. And then we're adding the 2 bases that the runner advanced. So the batter gets 3 bases on this particular play. We call it batter bases generated, or BBG. Okay? Very simple, but a very simple example, but that's a big part of our database, our plays just like that. Force outs. Force outs, the batter gets a 0. In this case, we have a similar situation. The batter hits a ground ball to the shortstop, tosses it to the second baseman, and the runner on first, as you see over here, is out at second. The batter is on first, but he does not get credit for that base. Okay, and you see the X over this runner, which indicates that he's out. So in this case, force outs, it's just batter BG is 0. You know, he started with a man on first, we end with a man on first. There's no advance. There's nothing, no improvement in terms of bases. So here's here's a sacrifice, which in a certain sense is the exact opposite of a force out. So in this case, the batter bunts, the runner on first successfully makes it to second, and the batter is out at first. In this case, there is an advance, and the batter gets credit for 1 base. Batter BG 1 in this case. Okay, here's another example. Runners on second and first, and the batter hits a ground ball, and the runner on first is forced out at second. So the way we score this part of the play, I'm assuming you guys can see my pointer. This part of the play is a force out. So on force outs, we scored 0 for the batter, but he did move a runner from second to third, so we do count that advance. So in this case, the batter gets a 1. And Bruce, by the way, if anybody has any questions, I'm not seeing anybody raise hands or anything.
We will let them ask questions at the end.
Okay, sure. Sounds good. More scoring rules. Bases gained on walks, hit by pitch, catcher's interference, and uncaught third strikes are scored as 1 base for the batter, plus 1 base for each runner forced to move up. Now here's this next rule is really important. A base runner thrown out trying for an extra base on a batted ball when he's not forced to run is debited for the bases lost. So that's really important. Any bases gained by base runners from a batted ball are credited to the batter. But if a base runner runs and he's not being forced and he's thrown out, then we debit the base runner for the bases lost. So let me show you an example. Okay, back to a similar example. Batter hits a single and the base runner is out at third. Now the way we score this is the batter gets 1 for the single, and then he gets 1 for the runner moving up to second. But the advance, so the batter gets those 2. The runner should have stayed at second, we know in retrospect, but he's out at third. So the runner is held accountable for the bases he lost. He was safe at second, so the runner gets a -2. And it's kind of, it makes sense because we start it with a runner on first. We end with a runner on first. The batter gets 2. The runner is deducted 2, which is a net 0. So there's no improvement, and there's a net 0 in the scoring for tBG. Okay, another situation where a batter gets a hit and is thrown out trying to stretch to an extra base is scored a 0 for that play for the batter. Excuse me. He gained and then lost bases for a net 0. You know, let's say there's nobody on. He hits a single. He's safe at first, of course. He tries for second and he's thrown out. So he gained 1 on the single, but then he lost 1 by being thrown out at second. So it's a net 0. And, you know, there's started with nobody on base. Now there's nobody on base. The guy's just walking back to the dugout, embarrassed, right? So it's a net 0. But what I will point out is in that case, all these other stats credit him with a hit. He's in batting average, on base percentage, slugging percentage, all count hits. OPS, WOBA. OPS counts that play twice as a hit, once for on base percentage and once for slugging percentage. So we don't do that. He gained nothing, right? The net is a 0. And so I think this is one area where we're a little more accurate, specifically compared to OPS. Double plays. So double plays are kind of tricky, but we had to have a long spec just on scoring double plays. But suffice it to say that a standard ground into a double play is a -1 for the batter, right? So one out is a 0 for the batter. If the batter causes 2 outs, then it's a -1. And a standard double play is when both runners are forced out regardless of base. Okay, so here we have a situation similar. Batter hits a ground ball to the second baseman, and they turn a double play. Runner on first is out at second, and the batter is out at first. The batter gets a -1 for that because he essentially caused two outs. Now, if we have a situation where there's runners on second and first, and the outs are at third and second, double play, standard double play, and the batter is safe at first. This is like our force out rule. And instead of 1 force out, he caused 2 force outs. So he, again, even though he's on base, he gets a -1 for this. And by the way, at the bottom of some of these slides, you'll see this retro sheet coding that we get for these plays. I'm not sure why I include that. I guess just to show you how tricky some of the retro sheet coding can be. I mean, when there's plays with a lot of bases, a lot of base runners, and people are running around, and there's errors and things, the coding gets very long and complicated. And then we end up applying numerous rules to the play to score it properly. Okay. Non-standard double plays. So you're probably wondering what those are. So if a player is doubled off, like on a line drive or a fly ball, that's essentially a base running mistake. We don't hold the batter responsible for both of those outs. So the batter gets a 0 for the line drive or fly ball, the out that he created. But the runner is held accountable for his out. And we debit the runner for the bases lost. So if he's on first and there's a line drive to the first baseman steps on first before the base runner can get back to first, he's out, of course, and the runner gets a -1 because he lost 1 base. As I said, we have a strict accounting that him getting on first was credited to him. Now he just lost first, so he gets a -1. Or another non-standard double play, batter flies out and the runner tags up and is thrown out. Again, the batter gets 1 out, the runner is debited for the bases lost. If he was on third, someone had been credited for those 3 bases for him to be on third, and he gets thrown out at home, he loses, he's debited three bases because he just lost 3 bases that were previously credited. Okay, strikeouts are scored like any other out, but if a runner advances after a strikeout, those advances are credited to the base runners as a steal. If the batter successfully reaches first on an uncaught third strike, 1 base goes to the batter and 1 base for each runner forced to move up. If the batter is out at first on an uncaught third strike, but a runner advances from first, the batter gets that advance, is credited with the advance from first to second. So it's sort of scored like an error or like a hit. Okay, so now we're into base running plays. Base running plays, by the way, amount to about 4% of the total plays in baseball. Bases gained as a result of steals, balks, wild pitches, pass balls, and errors on pickoff attempts are credited to the base runners. There's no batted ball, so we obviously can't credit them to the batter. And the same thing with caught stealing and pickoffs. There's no batted ball. The bases lost are debited to the base runner. And now there's other base running plays where the base runner can lose bases when there's a batted ball. Runner interference, for example, passing a runner hit by a batted ball. All these are rare plays, but we had to have rules for them because they have happened. So they are the runner is debited for the bases lost on those plays. So that covers our base running. So, okay. That's a quick overview of tBG and how we score it. So we have this big database, and now we've scored all the plays for batters, runner on first, runner on second, runner on third. That's a lot of data. The question is, what do we do with that data? And what we do is a lot, and we have a lot of reports, over 25 of them at this point. And we have reports for batting, base running, and pitching. And for player season, player career, and team season. And all of these reports are accessible on our webpage, which is totalbasesgen.com. So let's look at some reports. This is the really fun stuff. Oh, excuse me. Let me explain a couple more things about the reports. Okay, so for tBG offense, we just count the number of bases that the player generates over the course of the season, and we call that tBG. It's a count stat. Then we take that number, we divide by plate appearances, and we call the result tBGPA. It's a rate stat. It's like batting average. Or like slugging percentage. Those are all rate stats. Reports also include park factor adjusted versions, tBG, with a small p next to them. So if you see a column with a number with a small p next to it, that means that number has been adjusted for park factor. And if you're not familiar with park factor, I assume most of you are, but it's any stat that you see that is normalized, that has a plus sign after it, has been not only normalized but adjusted for park factor. And it's because some parks, some stadiums have a lot of offense and some of them have very little. So some of them are known as pitchers' parks and some are known as hitters' parks. So all of that is measured, and then we adjust our numbers according to, well, we adjust our numbers for every play, basically, based on what stadium that play took place in. So, so this is fairly common, adjusting for park factor. And I could go through several slides explaining it, but I will spare you because it can be sort of time consuming. But we also take our tBGPA, P, adjusted for park factor, and we normalize it against the league season average. So we get a tBG plus stat, okay? And let's see here. Oh, we also have possible bases generated. So there's a lot of stats in this whole project, but all of them are very, very simple. Possible bases generated just means what are the total possible bases the batter could generate, and how many did he generate? What's the percentage of them that he actually did generate? So if the bases are empty, the possible bases generated for a play is 4. What that means is if the guy hits a home run, he could possibly generate 4 bases. If the runner's on first, he can generate 7. If the bases are loaded, he would generate 10. So for each play, we add that up, the possible bases generated. Then we divide tBG is divided by the possible bases generated to determine the possible bases generated percentage. This is perhaps the fairest stat we have because it's, some players, at the bottom of the lineup don't get as many chances. They don't come up with as many people on base. They don't have as many chances to move people around the bases. And so this is telling us, well, when they, of all the chances, what's the percentage they succeeded at in generating bases? And this is just a slide about normalized stats. That means we take a stat and we compare it to the league average for that particular season. And the player is either above or below the league average being 100. So if you see 110, you know the player was approximately 10% better in that particular stat than the league average. And if he's a 90, it's 10% below. Okay, so we base our normalized stats on tBGPA, the park adjusted. And for pitching, we have total bases surrendered per inning, also adjusted for park factor. And I'll show you the pitching in a minute here. I'm jumping ahead a little bit. Okay, so here's one of our reports. This is the player year report, the tBG player year report. And it's sorted by tBG plus. So this number is based on comparing this number with the league average for that year. So Joe Morgan has a lower tBGPA P than Babe Ruth in 1921, but compared to the league average for 1976, it's a little bit higher. When I did this presentation in Baltimore at the Babe Ruth Museum, I looked at the ceiling and I said, Babe, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to put Joe Morgan ahead of you. Please forgive me. But Joe Morgan was an MVP that season. He was the MVP in 75 as well. Had a remarkable season. And according to our numbers, he's got that higher tBG plus number. However, you can see the Babe had more bases generated that season in 1921. In fact, if you look down here, there's nobody else that crosses 1,000 bases generated the way we're counting it than Babe in that one season. And you can see his tBGPA is the highest. I mean, in terms of seasons here, we're qualifying batters if they have 3.1 plate appearances per game. And so there's about 12 or 13,000 rows in this report. This is just the top of the very top, the cream of the cream in terms of tBG plus. And you see some Bonds, there's a Gehrig, more Babe Ruth seasons. These are the usual suspects, the greatest hitters of all time. We even have Ty Cobb down here a couple times in seasons. So, and now this report, along with all of our reports, are in Google Docs. So you can go out to Google Docs and pull up any of these reports, and you can sort them in whatever way you want. This is just our default sort, is tBG plus. You can sort it by this number, any number you want. And you can even filter. And I'll show you a filtered report in just a second here. What do we have here? I can't see the heading on my, let me see.
tBG Player Season Report 2025.
Okay. And we're sorting by, oh, this is for 2025. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I've filtered the report. You can see there's a little filtering icon there by 2025, just so you can see who generated the most tBG last year. And it's actually sorted by tBG plus. But we have Aaron Judge here at the top on the AL. We have Kyle Schwarber, had the highest tBG in the NL. He actually had more tBG than Ohtani, 692. And I put on the internet in the Sabre discussion group about a month ago that Schwarber maybe should have gotten the Silver Slugger Award instead of Ohtani. And I got a lot of pushback on that. He did get more tBG, but of course, Ohtani had fewer chances because Ohtani was leading off. And you see here's the chances, the possible BBG. Schwarber had 300 more possible BBG than Ohtani, but only about, 30 or so more tBG. So, and the possible is Schwarber at 183 and Ohtani a little bit higher at 187. So perhaps Ohtani did deserve Silver Slugger. I don't know. Certainly, his OPS was a good bit higher than Schwarber's, and it seems like a lot of people vote on OPS. They're not aware of tBG, of course, so they wouldn't be able to vote on that. But So I'm just showing you 2025 in case you're interested. What do we have next? And Bruce, what does that say at the top?
tBG team season report.
Oh, the team season report. Okay, yeah. And it's sorted by tBG Plus. Just in case you wanted to see who are some of the greatest hitting teams in baseball history back to 1910. That's essentially what this report is telling us. We see the 1931 Yankees have the top number in 4 categories here. The Yankees in 1930 had the highest tBGPA. Looks like one of the only ones above 1, except for the Yankees in 36 down here. So, see a lot of Yankees teams on this. This is the top of the report. Again, this report would have approximately 2,600 records in it of team years, team seasons. And hey, we have the Cincinnati Reds up here. Now, by the way, keep in mind, tBG also includes the running stat. So the Reds had a positive 158 in 1976, which bumps them ahead of some of these other teams, even though they have a lower tBG, because they have a positive base running number, whereas a lot of these teams from the 30s have negative base running numbers. And we'll see that when we look at some base running reports. We're going to do that next. But it's really odd that teams of the modern era, have positive base running numbers, whereas teams in the 30s and even before often have negative net base running numbers. Somebody needs to research that. I'm sure it's been done. I'm just not aware of it or the reasons. They ran a lot back then. They don't run as much now. We know that much. And they run more carefully now, I guess we could say. Okay, so our base running stat, which we call tBGR, total bases generated as a runner. As I said before, it includes bases gained and lost on the base paths, for which the batter is not responsible, right? For what plays for which the runner is responsible. And tBGR is really just a subset of tBG because we add the base running numbers into tBG, because tBG is our comprehensive offensive number, and that includes base running. We also calculate an extra bases stat. This is something we did recently, and we add it to tBGR for what we're considering a much more comprehensive base running stat. tBGR has 15 plays. Extra bases has another 10, which gives us, a better base running stat, a more comprehensive, perhaps a more accurate stat. Because in tBG, extra bases, and by that we mean extra bases taken, right, by base runners. If a base runner goes for an extra base in the tBG scoring and he's out, we deduct it from their tBG number, right, or their tBGR number. So they aren't, and if they make it, it's credited to the batter, right? So for this, if the player gains an extra base, we want it to give it to the base runner to get a better measure for base running. And you'll see that in just a minute here. And this is a reminder, these are the plays that count towards tBGR, total bases generated for a runner. 15 plays. We went over this before. This is just a reminder. There's lots of plays where you can gain and lots of plays that are debited. And out after tagging up on a fly ball or out advancing on a batted ball when not forced, that can cover many different plays. By the way, you might be wondering, what is this other advance here? That's in the retro sheet play scoring, where there's a base was gained. There's no record of exactly how the base was gained, so it's listed as other advance. Nobody really knows. It could have been an error, it could have been a balk, it could have been a wild pitch or a steal. It's just not known. But we do know a runner advanced, and we credit him with that advance. We just don't know how he advanced. Okay, I mentioned extra bases. So these are the plays we count for our extra bases taken stat. And extra bases, the way we define extra bases is the runner gains more bases than the batter provided with his batted ball. That's essentially what we mean. And add onto that the runner was not forced. So if we have a runner on second and the batter hits a single, but the runner scores, the runner went 2 bases, but the batter hit only for 1 base. So the runner has gained 1 extra base beyond what was hit. All right. So we have, and these first 3 plays, the single, these are just the column headers in the report, by the way. Single, runner goes from 1 to third, first to third. Single, runner goes from second to home. Or a double, runner goes from first to home. On the double, batter's providing 2 bases. The runner actually goes 3 bases. So these 3 plays are plays that are included in every extra base stat. And let me just point out one thing. Virtually every stats site has a different extra base stat. It's calculated differently. They count different plays, and it may even have different names. So extra bases taken is a relatively new stat, and it's no single one has been adopted yet. It's kind of a confusing situation, but that's what we have now with all these stat sites and people creating their own stats, people like me. Okay, so a couple other stats, a couple other plays that we count. Flyouts, where the batter is out, he provides no bases, but the runner moves up a base. We count those. We also count groundouts. The batter hits a ground out, and the runner goes from second to third. We count that, as long as first base is empty. So he's not being forced to run. He chooses to run. So we give him an extra base for that. Same thing with 3 to home. And then we have 2 extra bases that we credit to the batter. If the batter is credited with a single, but he ends up on second, we credit him with an extra base. If he hits a double and ends up on third, we credit him with an extra base. So those are the plays that we count. Again, you can look at extra base taken stats on other sites, and they will count different plays. It's kind of the Wild West out there for extra base taken stats right now. Okay, so here's one of our extra base reports. This is for player season. These are the most extra bases a player has taken back to 1910 per season. Okay, so and we have Augie Gallen up here at the top. We have Kenny Lofton, you'll see. There's Willie Wilson in 1980, Ron LaFleur, Dom DiMaggio. And what we have here's each of the plays. So we have the number of extra bases for each of these plays the player gained. So here's his total extra bases. These are the outs he made attempting extra bases. So we subtract that from the extra bases he did gain for his total. So Augie Gallen in 1935 ended up with a total of 115. We also count opportunities, and then we divide the extra bases by the number of opportunities to get the percentage of how good was he at actually taking these extra bases. And we see here's a player down here, Lonnie Smith, in 1982, 53%. Pretty amazing. These are the best of the best players. They're not getting thrown out a lot, so you don't see very high numbers in this column. But there's our extra bases report. Now, again, I mentioned that we take this number and we add it. We actually take this number and we add it to their total bases generated as a runner. And let's look at that report. So here's our, whoops. Oh, okay, never mind. Wait, where am I? Oh, this is extra bases sorted by, I put a screenshot in here of extra bases sorted by outs, by extra base outs. And look who we have at the top, Ty Cobb. Look at all this. He's got about half of the top 12 seasons are Ty Cobb because he was running all the time. There was nobody ever like Ty Cobb before or after him as a base runner. And we do have a few, there's a season in here for, oh gosh, I forget his name. The great runner from Oakland and the Yankees.
Ricky Henderson.
Ricky Henderson, of course. Okay, I'm not seeing him here, but we'll see him on another report. But I did, because Ricky Henderson didn't have as many outs attempting extra bases. This doesn't mean these are the only outs. I mean, the outs from stolen bases are not on here. This is just outs attempting stolen bases. I just thought this would be interesting to look at. Okay, so here's our xtBGR. And this is adding up the tBGR of all the plays we just talked about. And here's the positive and the negative numbers. The positive extra bases, we're not counting negative extra bases here because the negative extra bases are already in here, right, in tBGR. So we're just taking the positive extra bases. We don't want to count the negative ones twice, and we come up with an xtBGR number, and that's how this is sorted. And we got Maury Wills in number 1 position, 1962. That was Maury Wills was an MVP in 1962. Pretty amazing season for a contact hitter to be MVP. We have Willie Wilson here in second place, just two bases behind him in 1980. I love Willie Wilson. Why? Because he made the last out in the 1980 World Series. Hooray! When the Phillies won. So I'm all for having a Willie Wilson parade on Broad Street in Philadelphia, because I get to see that out over and over again whenever I look at Tug McGraw strike him out. Anyway, if you'll notice here, they all play different number of games, right? From injuries or the seasons where 156 back in the day. Now they're 162. So they all have different seasons. So we also divided the extra tBGR by games played. And you see Rickey Henderson has the highest average, which is really not surprising. He's, astonishing. He and Ty Cobb are astonishing. So he has the highest bases gained as a base runner per game, according to this stat. Now we can look at, so let's look at our pitching. We call our pitching number total bases surrendered. Because we know the batter on each and every play, we also know the pitcher, and we can add up the number of bases a pitcher surrendered throughout a season, and then more importantly, per inning. So we call that tBSI, total bases surrendered per inning. And then we can start to compare pitchers, and we can compare pitchers from different eras. We adjust that number for park factor because we already have the park factor adjusted numbers in the database. And then we normalize. So we end up with tBSIP, which is the park factor adjusted version of that stat. And then we normalize against the league average to give us tBS plus. And we have separate reports for starters, relievers, and closers. Why? Because starters and closers are different beasts, but they come out without anybody on base at the start of an inning, right? For the most part, for closers at least. For starters all the time, but for closers most of the time. They're coming out, there's nobody on base. But relievers are coming in with runners on base, so it's more likely they're going to give up more, they're going to surrender more bases. So we have separate reports for them because we think that's just a little fairer way to look at that. So here's our tBS starter report, player or starter season, sorted by tBS plus. And it's taking this number right here and comparing it to the year average. So we see Greg Maddux here. That was compared to a different number because the number we're comparing for Greg Maddux is 95 for this season. And the number for Pedro Martinez is the league number for 2000. Now, when we say league numbers, we're talking about AL numbers and NL numbers, separate numbers for both leagues, not MLB, not across the board MLB. So then this gets kind of tricky when a player plays in both leagues in one season. So we have to do more math in that case. And we see Clayton Kershaw and we see Walter Johnson up here from 1913. And there's another Walter Johnson in here in 1912, which I find astonishing because, starting pitchers nowadays are taken out of games earlier before the batters really start hitting them and figure them out by the third time through the order, right? So starting pitchers are sort of protected compared to batters when Walter Johnson pitched, where they had to pitch a lot more innings and they completed games. As you can see, look, Walter Johnson 346 innings, and here Pedro Martinez 217. So this number kind of for players of Walter Johnson's age, they are going to have a higher tBS plus is basically what I'm saying. I mean a lower tBS plus, and the fact that he has such a high one is really astonishing. because he was pitching a lot of complete games, whereas these guys aren't pitching quite as many complete games. So at any rate, Pedro Martinez has a phenomenal season in 2000. And you can see it's a lot higher than the next person. And we see several Kershaw seasons in here, Justin Verlander. So we're seeing a lot of starting pitchers in this report from the modern era, not previous. And there are reasons for that, as we just discussed. Let's look at what else we have next. Here's the team season. So team season TBS reports. And look who we have in number 1, the Cleveland Indians. And by the way, you see it's filtered over here. And the reason I filtered this report for this presentation, for this slideshow, is simply because to keep 2020 out of some of these listings, because there's many fewer innings pitched. That was the COVID year where they didn't play a full season. And if someone went wild for 60 innings, then they're at the top of the report. And the report gets a little distorted with 2020 in it. So that's why you don't see 2020 in this. Because it just didn't seem fair to compare teams with this many innings versus the number of innings that they pitched in 2020. And here we go. The 2017 Cleveland Indians. I was shocked when I saw that. I'm not really shocked when I see a Dodgers team. And 1944 Cardinals, I don't know anything about them. But the 2017 Cleveland Indians, they had Corey Kluber, was their Cy Young award-winning starter. They had Carlos Carrasco, an 18-6. Trevor Bauer, 17-9. So they had quite a team. Now, we're not saying the Cleveland Indians pitching staff is the greatest pitching staff ever. That's not what we're saying. We're saying that this particular number, compared to the year average, is 28.7% better than that year average. And that's higher number than any other team back to 1910. So they had a good pitching staff. It's not conclusively saying it's the best pitching staff ever. Let's see what else we have here. Oh, here we go. Team season, and we're sorting this time by tBSI, total bases surrendered per inning. Pretty interesting. Here we have one of those great Orioles pitching staffs up here. The fewest total bases surrendered per inning back to 1910, adjusted for park factor. Okay? And you'll see in this list a lot of teams from the dead ball era back in the teens, which makes perfect sense, doesn't it? The ball was dead. Hey, they weren't hitting it as far. They weren't able to generate as many bases. But the Orioles, this just puts that Orioles team in relief, doesn't it? About how amazing they were. Jim Palmer, a lot of guys. Okay. Okay, now what I said, I came along and I said, okay, so we have this TBS number for team pitching, and we have the tBG plus number for team batting. What if we take those two numbers and add them together? Wouldn't that show us arguably some of the greatest teams in baseball history? So we created a report called Total Team Performance Report. tBG plus TBS plus. A lot of pluses in that particular calculation. And I did not filter out the 2020 Dodgers. As you see, they're 43-17, so not as many games, but I left them in because they were in first place, winning percentage of .717, pretty amazing, just a tiny bit better than the 2001 Seattle Mariners, .717. But to me, here we have the 1939 Yankees. So we see we add their tBG and their TBS, and we get the second highest number, not counting a 2020 team that got snuck in there. We can also look at, here's the run differential. And this run differential is much higher than the Dodgers that particular season. And we have the total bases differential. Look at that number. It's phenomenal. And this is adjusted for park factor, but over 12 bases more than their opponents per game. So they were, they kicked some butt, the 39 Yankees, as you all know. And there's other people who have called them one of, if not the best team in baseball history. And the other thing I notice about this, again, this report has 2,600 rows, and it's fun to look at the worst teams too, by the way. But we'll see the 2020 Dodgers, the 2022 Dodgers are here, the 2019 Dodgers, the 2021, 2020, 2017. It's remarkable how many Dodgers teams are high up in this. And this does not even count, by the way, the last two World Series winning Dodgers teams. They are further down the list. I think the 2025 team is around 500 on this total performance number. So this Dodgers team, somebody may be able to successfully argue that this is kind of a, what would you call it? A dynasty. Because these are 4 or 5 years in the top 20, and we're not even counting the 2 years where they won the World Series. The Dodgers have been pretty phenomenal. Even though some of these years they didn't even make it to the World Series. This is just regular season. This is not postseason, okay? Okay, we have some other fun reports, and if I have a few more minutes, I'd like to keep going, and I'll try to get through these other fun reports quickly. We're at 8:20. I guess if you have to leave, feel free to do so. I'm sorry for the delay, but these other reports are really neat because there's lots of things you can do with this data. So this first one is most offense by a player in a game. This is amazing. These are some of the most incredible offensive performances in baseball history, not counting pre-1910 because we don't have the data. But there we have Walker Cooper generated 37 bases in one game. Absolutely astonishing. He went 6 for 7 with 3 home runs. Now, to get a high number here, obviously people have to be on base. We have Mark Whiten, who generated 35, 4 home runs, and then he popped out one time. So that's why you have a difference of 4 between tBG and the possible tBG, but it still gives him an 89.7, which is a very high number. Walker Cooper, who was kind of the Johnny Bench of his day, of catchers, by the way, 69.4%. So he had a possible tBG of 57. That's a lot. That's because a lot of his teammates were on base when he was up to bat, right? We can look at Josh Hamilton. Here's a game I always look at. In Baltimore, 2012, Josh Hamilton, he went 5 for 5, 4 home runs and a double, but he only got 30 tBG. This 93.8 possible BG percent, just astonishing. The only reason he didn't get 2 more, 100%, was because he hit a double instead of a home run for that 5th hit. That game, you can go out and watch highlights of that game on YouTube. And, it's funny. Josh Hamilton's acting like, it's no big deal after the game. He's kind of surprised. Seems like he's kind of annoyed he's being interviewed after the game. But this may be one of the greatest offensive performances, certainly one of the greatest offensive performances in baseball history. Just amazing. And I've written a little article about both Walker Cooper and Josh Hamilton out on our site. I also put a little article about this guy, J.R. Towles. An amazing performance. J.R. Towles was called up in September of 2007 and basically impersonated Babe Ruth for 1 month and then never had another good month in his career. And by the way, J.R. Towles is from the Houston area, so people in Houston loved him. But he had this remarkable game where I guess he was, 4 for 6 and a walk and a hit by pitch and 31. So, yeah, J.R. Towles never stuck with Houston. He had a chance the next season. He just didn't hit that well, had injuries, ended up in the minors, eventually ended up in the independent league, and now he's a contractor in the Houston area. I'd like to talk to him sometime just for this game. It's really phenomenal. He still holds the record for Houston for most RBIs in a game, by the way. So, and you see other guys, Dallas Garcia, now the right fielder for the Phillies. I guess this was back, this wasn't the World Series. This is in, one of the playoff series. Gets 35, just astonishing. Here we have, where do we have Ohtani? Here's Ohtani tormenting the poor Miami Marlins in September of 2024. I think Ohtani actually got lost a couple bases base running, or he would have had a higher number. Just amazing. I mean, he went 6 for 6. So, with 3 home runs. So, at any rate, these are just amazing offensive performances. Now, let's take a look. What do we have next here? Okay, this is most tBG, or most offense in a game by a team in a single game. And we have a historic game in 07, the Rangers against the Orioles. Rangers 30, Orioles 3. They generated 133 tBG in that game. Amazing, absolutely astonishing. You can still see this game on YouTube, and you can look at highlights. It's the first game that had 30 runs by a team, I believe, back to 1905. The only game, 30 runs. And to listen to some of the players talk about this game afterwards, they were all like in shock, especially the Orioles. And I believe it was a doubleheader, so they were there a long time. And I think Texas won both halves of the doubleheader. I don't remember that specifically, but it was a trouncing. And I wrote an article about that with all the records that are set on that game. It's accessible in my website, the tBG website, totalbasesgen.com. So these are just games for one team that had a tremendous amount of offense. And you can look at this game, by the way, Cubs 26, Phillies 23, and you see it up here for the Cubs. They had 123. And then the game appears right here because the Phillies had 122. Really an amazing game back in 1922. That's a game, since I'm from Philadelphia, I've really got to research that game and do a future presentation on that, because that's a historic game. Okay, now we have a report. Most offense in a game by both teams. And we see that same game, Chicago and the Phillies, at Wrigley Field in 1922, 245 tBG, just unbelievable. And here we have columns for each team in the report, but I had to cut it off here on the screenshot, or else the text would be far too small. And we have another game, Phillies against the Cubs, from 1979. I believe Mike Schmidt had 4 home runs that game. Dave Kingman had a bunch. It was an unbelievable game. You can see that game on YouTube if you like to, or you can see the highlights. It's amazing, absolutely amazing. I think Bill Buckner was in that game. Okay. We also have, most bases gained as a base runner in a game, right? And we have the tBGR and the positive extra bases. So we total up, and we have 5 players tied with 9. I wrote a little article about the Bert Campaneris game and the Johnny Noon game in 1927. And by the way, that 1927 game was part of a doubleheader. Johnny Noon in the second game had 9 tBGR in 7 innings. In the first game, Babe Ruth had like 27 tBG in the first game. So that's on the previous report, right? The report for the most tBG by a player in a game. Babe Ruth is in that, probably around 40th or 50th. Okay, so this is really cool. I mean, just looking at these amazing performances. And by the way, I recently wrote a Games Project article about this game with Bert Campaneris. And that should appear out on the Sabre site within a few weeks. It's in the final editing stages. They edit it. That's where they make your writing look a lot better than it actually is, you might remember. But that's such an astonishing game. Kansas City won that game 4-2. Bert Campaneris scored all 4 runs. There were no RBIs by Kansas City. He scored those runs running. It's an amazing accomplishment. Okay, what else do we have here? Most bases lost by a base runner in a game. And here we have a guy, Joe Judge, for the Senators in 1916. He lost 9 bases in a game, in a 13-inning game. How did he do that? Well, so this may be the worst running performance in baseball history. I don't know, maybe. Back to 1910. Poor Joe Judge. How do you do that? Well, you could be, try to score 3 times on a hit or a fly ball or something and get thrown out 3 times at home. you'd be losing 3 bases on each play. It's a -9. So I'm surprised there aren't more -9s in this. You can see there's a few more -9 tBGRs, but they're offset a little bit by extra bases they gained. So Joe Judge is all by himself up here. I have a little article out there. Bing Miller was thrown out at home 3 times in a game for the Athletics. You got to wonder, after being thrown out 2 times, why go the 3rd time? Maybe the 3rd time you'd say, maybe I shouldn't run, but he did. Thrown out 3 times. So I have a little article about some of these horrendous base running performances, including the one by Tris Speaker with photos. It's kind of cool. Unfortunately, we don't have YouTube from back then. We can't see these actual miscues. Okay, 2 more reports I have. Here is number of bases given up by a pitcher in a single inning. Most bases given up by a pitcher in a single inning. You know, but once you have this stuff in your database, you can do all kinds of stuff with SQL, right? And that's what we've done here. So Lefty O'Doul in the first position by 3 bases in a game in 1923. That would be worth looking into. Wonder what the heck went on in the 6th inning. The Red Sox were getting clobbered 27-3, so I guess the manager figured, why take him out? You know, the game's over. Now, we have a game here, Luke Hudson in 06. I assume he's still alive. 46 TBS he gave up in an inning. And we have David Buchanan by the Philadelphia Phillies in 2015, gave up 45 in an inning. This is the inning. I'm tempted to try to get in touch with a couple of those guys who are still living and just ask them about these innings and what it was like for them and why the managers kept them in. I'm sure they remember them. I'm sure they've had nightmares about those innings. Okay, 1 more report. This is the most bases surrendered by a pitcher in a game, in a single game. So we have the innings in the game and the innings that the pitcher actually pitched. And we have Eddie Rommel going 17 innings here, giving up 100 bases. Just amazing. Faced 87 batters in a game. Wow, who was his coach? He was sadistic. Wouldn't take him out. Hey, that might have been Connie Mack. Holy cow. 1932. And Alan Travers, 1912. Had a bad game. Ouch. So you see a lot of Athletics pitchers in here from the dead ball era. Connie Mack didn't want to take them out. Kept them in there. Who knows? So these are just amazing performances. And that's it for me. That's the last of the reports I wanted to show you. I have totalbasesgen.com. I can show you the webpage for a minute if you don't mind.
Not at all. I'll tell you one thing. If he's not comprehensive, he's enthusiastic.
Okay, let me see here. Let me bring this up. Okay, there's our webpage. And we have a little bit of discussion of what tBG is here in the beginning. A little more information in some files here. Here's a presentation I gave back in October. Our updates, our upcoming events, including tonight, is on here. And then here are our reports, right, in this column on the left. Total team performance, we looked at that. We looked at several of these reports. We didn't look at all the pitching reports because we don't have that much more time. And we have some base running reports here. Here's the extra bases. Have some acronyms spelled out over here on the right. And here are some of these articles I mentioned. Joe Judge, 9/21/16, the worst base running performance in baseball history? Maybe. Walker Cooper and Josh Hamilton's historic game. The Rangers' historic thrashing of the Orioles. So I find these things in these reports. These reports reveal a lot of interesting stuff in baseball history. So anyway, so these are some little short articles I've written about things we found, including one about I have some base stealing of home reports that we haven't posted yet, but there's a player who was actually caught stealing home twice in 1 inning. It actually happened. And this article explains how that possibly could have happened. So anyway, I thank you for your time. I'm really sorry when I lost internet access there for 20 minutes. I'm thrilled that so many people stayed on to hear this. And
Hey,
if we
we've
have
got
questions,
for you.
let's
You
do
bet
it.
we do, my guy. We got questions. Mike O'Hare had to leave, and he wanted me to get a couple of questions in. First
Okay.
one was, do you feel that Major League Baseball will set up some sort of governance over statistics? There's so many variations to look at everything.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how they choose what stats that Major League Baseball endorses. I don't know that much about it, but they do endorse certain stats and they include them on their site. Maybe they have a committee for that. I don't know. It probably would be helpful. Somebody has to determine these things, and there's so many stats out there. There's really a proliferation of stats. Baseball reference, fan graphs, baseball prospectus. They all have different WAR values, by the way.
That's
they
correct,
calculate
yes.
WAR differently. And then there's Baseball Savant with some brilliant statisticians. It's just amazing. It's good and it's bad because it's kind of overwhelming and it turns people off to analytics, I think. But there's a lot of advances being made. It's really amazing.
Mike's second question is, are park adjustments across different data methodologies consistent?
No, I don't think they are. We have our own park adjustment. We do it our own way. We do it the way most other teams do it. For instance, Pete Palmer said, don't count pitching at bats in park adjustments. So we don't do that. Now, I don't know if everybody does that, but if Pete Palmer says don't do it, that seems like a good enough reason to me.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Yeah. But it is calculated differently. Like a lot of places, they'll calculate, say, a park factor for a season, and then just apply it to the batter's batting average, where they played, right? So they may say, okay, he played at, Citizens Bank Park. That's a hitting park. 5% extra, 105 is the park factor for Citizens Bank Park. I'm just throwing it out as an example. I don't know if that's true. He played at home half the game, so we're going to divide that by half, 2.5%. And then therefore, because it's a hitter's park, we're going to deduct 2.5% from his batting average. So that's how a lot of sites do it. It's just one calculation, right? I mean, they do multiple calculations to determine the park factor, but then to apply it, they apply it to the final number. We apply it on a play-by-play basis based on the park factor for where the play happened. And so we have a different number for tBG for every play in our database, and for the batter, and we have a different number for tBGP in the database. So then we add those numbers up separately to get our park adjusted stats. So we do it a little differently, but I think we calculate the park factor itself in the same way. There's pretty much an established way you calculate park factor. How you apply it is different for tBG, and I can't speak for everybody else.
Joe Ross, you're up, man. How you doing, Joe?
Okay, it's enough to give you a headache.
That's what I'm afraid of. Yeah.
Oh, you went mute, Joe.
Joe,
Joe, you went mute. Sorry about that.
Whoops, not hearing Joe.
Yeah, I see.
Here he is.
How about better now? Okay. Sorry about that. Mike, as I was saying, great job. A lot of work.
Yeah.
There are 3 questions I have.
Mm-hmm.
If a runner steals, and because he goes to second, the runner from third scores from home, does the first runner get credit for 2 or only 1?
No, we would score that separately for each runner because I believe in that case they'd both be credited with stolen bases.
Okay.
So that's how we would handle that. Yeah, we would handle each separately. You're right. It might. I mean, the reason he scored might have been because of the steal to second, but yeah, for a double steal, I mean, they're both credited with a steal. So.
Okay. Now, next one is, what if a fly out and there's a runner on second and he advances?
Mm-hmm.
That's not a sacrifice fly by rule because he didn't score.
Oh, really?
Yeah. In order to be a sacrifice fly, the runner has to score. So by rule, it's not a sacrifice.
Okay.
Do we credit him for that? Do we credit the batter for advancing one runner?
We credit the batter even on outs. If he advances runners, we credit the batter.
Okay.
Yeah.
The third thing and the final one is the one thing I think I was looking for and couldn't find, if I'm trying to rate a group of players to figure out which one I want to buy or steal or whatever.
If you're a GM,
one
maybe?
figure I didn't see is the extra base hits for the runner divided by the number of times he was on base in the first place. I don't care how many at-bats he had. If I want to judge his prowess of running, I want to know how many bases he was able to steal based on how many times he was on base.
Yeah, we don't do that division you're talking about.
I noticed that.
I mean, we do have steals, of course. I'm not quite following what you're talking about. You said extra base hits at first.
Okay. No, extra bases, not base hits.
Oh, extra bases taken. Yeah.
Yeah.
If it's on a hit, we credit it. We always credit it to the batter. That's like sort of our foundational principle of our scoring.
No, I'm talking about runners, guys on first base.
Right.
Now, if he steals second, you credit him with one base.
Right.
If he's if he gets on base only that one time in the game, he's got one.
Yeah.
But that doesn't tell me enough because he might have been on base 4 times, but only stole one base.
Oh, well, if he gets on base other times, we credit him, even if he doesn't get hits. Oh, yeah. If he gets on base by errors.
I'm talking about the runner only. If he's on first 4 times and steals once, you're giving him 1 stolen base worth of credit.
Yeah. But if he gets on base 4 times, we're crediting him with getting on base in the first place.
Yeah, right, but that's not enough. I want to know how often he's able to steal when he is on base.
Oh, I see. Total number of times on base, steals divided by total number of times on base.
Bingo.
Okay.
You got it.
Okay. Well, I'll keep that in mind. I mean, we have stolen base percentage out there, which is just a matter of stolen bases divided by stolen bases and caught stealing.
Yeah, that's good, but that doesn't tell me whether he's Ricky Henderson.
Yeah,
who
that's
will be
an
on base
thing.
4 times and try 6 times.
Yeah. We'll
as
think about that.
Somebody who can't run.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like you're talking about the opportunities for extra bases taken that we count. You're talking about opportunities for steals.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
Same thing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we'll have to think about that.
Okay,
we started out just doing tBG, and then we added the extra bases. Creating new stats is a possibility. Well, thank you.
That's what you needed.
Thank you for that. Yeah, more.
Yeah, more. Yeah. But otherwise, other than that, it was great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our man Jeff Cohen's up. Jeff, go.
Thanks. Joe, you think that was a lot of work? He did all that by hand. My question has to do with how does the rule changes affect your calculations? I mean, now the bases are bigger, the bulk rule has changed. Does that take into consideration any of your calculations?
Well, I think all of those things will affect this stat. I mean, they did the thing with the bases. They made them bigger and shorter to try to help base running, right? And they limited the number of pickoff attempts to try to help the base running. So, yeah, we've seen a bit of an uptick on some base running the last few years.
But the comparison to the older players is not apples to apples, though.
Right. That's where the normalized stats come in, I think.
Okay.
When you compare them to the players their own year, on a yearly basis to just that year, and that gives you a number. So, yes, you're right. I mean, in Pete Palmer's book, he points out in the early 30s, the average batting was close to 300. In 65, the average batting average is 245. But they are equivalent. So if you do a normalized stat, that would tell you how much they are above or below the average for that season. So in other words, if somebody hits 300 in 31, that's actually a 100. And if they hit 245 and 65, that's actually also a 100. Those are equivalent because those are the league averages. So that's why those normalized stats are so helpful. It allows you to compare players from different eras when there might have been much more offense or much more base running. So that's the whole point of those normalized stats, to be able to help you. So if you see a stat with a plus sign, it's normalized based on the league from that year. And the whole point of normalizing is to help you be able to compare players from different eras, which is hard to do. But I mean, it's impossible, really. But this sort of helps a little bit.
No, thank you very much. It's very interesting.
Sure.
Last one for tonight is Callum Beck. Callum,
And by the way, there's a chapter in Pete Palmer's book on park factors and on normalizing, and there's also a chapter in there about baseball history, which is really cool. Baseball stat history, excuse me, which is really so. Those 3 chapters are really good reading for anybody who's interested in analytics. And of course, there's also the book called The Numbers Game, which came out in 2003. I left it upstairs when I was running around looking for a Wi-Fi connection. But that book, The Numbers Game, is really great on a history of baseball stats. And really interesting. And then, of course, Moneyball is a great book. I would recommend anybody. There's 10 or 15 pages in there about Bill James and Pete Palmer's mentioned in there, and on-base percentage. It's just so cool. So anyway, I would recommend those 3 books.
Yeah, Mike, thank you very much for that.
Sure.
So just quick question first, when did you come up with the system?
Oh, it's been in the last 4 years, maybe 5 years, something like that, where I was sitting around with this neighbor of mine watching a game, and I just said, why don't with slugging percentage, they count the bases, but they don't count the bases of the players that they advance. I said, a single where a guy scores from second is obviously much more valuable than just a plain old single with nobody on base. I don't know if it's 3 times as more valuable, but it's valuable. It's more valuable scoring a run. Moving players is part of the whole point of going up to the plate, right? So why don't we count those? And there's very few stats that count bases that the player generates. The RBIs is the only one, at least the only common one, and that only counts the base from third to home, right? For tBG, we count those other bases.
Yeah.
If he moves runners.
And did you use any other previous system, or did you come up with it completely on your own?
Well, we came up with it on our own, but then we realized there were a few other people who have done very similar things.
Yeah.
So that was a startling day when we found that, because we were stupid enough to think, well, we're coming up with something original. I think it's original in around the edges, but there are other people who have done similar things in the past.
Yeah.
And
just one other quick question. You prioritize the plate appearances, the total bases over plate appearances, as opposed to over possible bases. Why do you do that, and which one do you find more accurate?
Oh, so you're saying is tBGPA more accurate than possible bases generated percent?
Correct.
Yeah, that's I guess I like both of them. I'm not sure which one I like better. I mean, possible bases generated percent might be the fairer stat, because it shows it's based on how many opportunities the guy has to move players, right? To move base runners. So that might be a fairer stat to look at. Might be a more representative of really his production. But geez, I mean, just whoever's generating the most bases, that's in a year, just a plain old count stat. That guy's got to be up there, right? That's the best guy. He generated the most bases. I mean, who would argue Babe Ruth had over 1,000 tBG in a season? Nobody would argue that anybody was better than Babe Ruth in that season. Nobody else had 1,000 tBG in the season, right? So I don't know. I mean, it's been pointed out to me that every stat has some value, and every stat has some flaws, and that possible bases generated percent. is an effort to try to avoid some of the flaws in tBG in the batting, right? Because it's a little fairer, perhaps, to players, especially a lower part of the lineup where they're hitting without as many people on base, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Schwarber got to hit with Turner on base a lot last year, which inflated his tBG numbers. So, yeah, the place in the lineup is going to affect. Yeah, there's some luck involved, in other words, in this stat. It's not perfect. But go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, definitely my conclusion is that the possible bases is the more accurate representation of offensive production.
Yeah. And we actually did not invent that number. We saw an article on the Retro Sheet site about a guy from the 80s who had done something similar, and he had come up with a stat like that. And so we took it from him. We adopted it, I should say. And we like to give him credit. Unfortunately, I didn't mention his name tonight, but I should. But we did get that idea for that stat from that article. And I don't have his name in front of me, but I should include it. I should include it on the website too, to tell you the truth. Yeah. It's not an original idea of ours. There's very few original ideas, right? But at least with baseball.
Well, you may have had an original idea, but other people had the same original idea.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, there's an article. I don't know where I read it. I don't know how I got it, but there's an article that appeared in Esquire in like 1932 for a guy who was working for Branch Rickey, who was counting bases, bases generated by hand from box scores in newspapers.
Wow.
And giving that information to Branch Rickey. He only did it for a few seasons, then he got another job somewhere or something, but he was like an intern and he wrote an article about it, and it was very much the same thing that we're talking about here tonight. So, yeah, not didn't think of this originally, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Might have generated more reports than some people have.
All right, this has been very interesting stuff. But let's do this again next week, April 20th, with Chris Boucher, who's coming back to us after having to reschedule earlier in the year. With his presentation, Jackie Robinson gets an assist from basketball's first Black pro. The sign-up link is available in the chapter meeting booklet and at the Sabre events calendar. And finally, if you're a baseball fan watching on YouTube and you like what you see, please like this video, to subscribe to our channel, and be alerted to each of our weekly uploads. And if you are not yet a member, why not? You need to join the Society for American Baseball Research, the premier baseball community. Offering an amazing baseball buffet of options to explore your fandom, Sabre boasts more than 35 different research committees, over 80 regional chapters, and innumerable opportunities to connect with baseball minds across the world. For more information, go to sabre.org today. Let's get everybody out of here. Mike, we appreciate you very much. We'll see everyone next week. Have a good night, everyone.